Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. The triumphant trio returns with Brian Davis finally making it back after his graduation duties have concluded. We have a lot to talk about. I'm Jeff Hartman, Dave Schofield. What's up, Dave?
Hey, not too much. It was just, your typical final day of phase 3 of OTAs before minicamp, just kind of getting through everything. Nothing really happening until next week, right?
Yeah, if that's what you want to say. Brian's back. What's up, Brian?
Yeah, I'm so glad to be back. Thanks for all the nice wishes as family graduated. And I tell you what, I'm so excited to talk about Will Howard tonight as we continue to go talking about the rookies and, quarterback. I mean, it's about time we talk about a quarterback, and Will Howard's the way to go.
We are going to be pushing back the Will Howard talk a week. The 6th round draft pick was, I titled this, I was the one that threw out the title for the podcast tonight, and I felt it was fitting because it's kind of like a dual title. The end is near. Aaron Rodgers is signing. Now, the reason why I say that is there's people like me who say the end is near, meaning finally we have some semblance of a decision being made. It's resolved. And I've always been saying this for months. I don't care which way they go. Just go in a direction. And that end is near. But then there's people that are thinking the end is near, as in prepare yourselves. The end is coming. The world's going to end. I mean, some of the reactions on social media, especially on Twitter this afternoon and evening, have been, we'll say, salty at best. But Dave, where do you stand on the title and where you believe you are with this Aaron Rodgers stuff?
Well, of course, Aaron Rodgers signs today. After this morning on Pittsburgh Standard Time, I actually said what we were going to be previewing, which I rarely say what we're actually going to talk about. I just say that we'll have the show. And of course, then that gets pushed back a week. But the signing, I feel a lot like you first mentioned, Jeff. I don't know which way you actually feel. I thought maybe this is how you felt. Just done, just happy that it's over. I want to know what I'm preparing for. I'm tired of the mystery. And more than anything, I am tired of people asking me about it. I couldn't go anywhere without everyone wanting to ask me what I thought about the Steelers and quarterback and Aaron Rodgers and this, that. I mean, I go to a picnic. Everybody asks me. I take my kid to the doctor yesterday, and the doctor's asking me. All kinds of people. And it was exhausting. I was tired of being in that zone of, well, we don't know what's going on exactly, but eventually we'll forget that this ever happened. But it was a long time. I mean, my goodness, it was almost 3 months. Almost 3 months when you think about it with all this, that you finally get an answer. Whenever the notion of Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers was first thrown out there, I was really against it. I did not think he was worth the money at all. And then the whole idea of what the money is was brought up as something different. So I'm still holding a little bit back because I really want to know if that's what the contract is what Aaron Rodgers said on the Pat McAfee show.
All right, Brian, you're kind of underdressed. I was expecting something a little bit nicer, I guess. I'm not sure if you're wearing the cursed Hall & Oates shirt, which that killed the 2017 Steelers, but nonetheless.
It was only Oates that killed it, and they're not speaking anymore. And I think that's one of the reasons that those guys aren't speaking.
As it should be. But why don't you get yourself in a proper attire before we ask what your question is?
Yeah, I'll change here. I'll go ahead and put my New Jersey on here. And you know what? I'm not in danger because with Terry Bradshaw coming out and saying they shouldn't sign him, there's no way he's giving him the number 12. So who was it? Who's the girl that always annoys Mike Tomlin? What's her name? Brooke Pryor. So she put it out today with a picture of him wearing number 12 and the captain. And by the way, they never wear the captain
did first. Yeah, but yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
I think Schefter might have been someone who had shared that as well before she did. I don't know.
Well, she still did it. Yeah. So all I'm going to say is I'll go ahead and put the jersey on when I stop talking here. Terry Bradshaw's not going to allow him to have 12. Hopefully it's 8. If not, I've got another Corliss Waitman jersey.
I was going to say, it's the cordless Waitman.
Yeah.
How much does he want to make?
Hey, I think Aaron Rodgers is frugal. I bet he wears 3 until Waitman gets cut or gets traded. Then he just takes 8.
But, you asked me how I feel about the signing. I'm elated because I really think that, first of all, we win. Steel Curtain Network wins. Because if the end is near and everything blows up in a bad way, we've got a lot to talk about. If it goes right, and they win a playoff game and things happen, we've got a lot to talk about. So it's great. And guess what? Now, if it goes right, then next year at this time, we talk about, well, will we come back for another year? Especially if they win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl. All I'm saying is there's got to be some excitement. If you're against it, hey, I don't blame you. I was against this at one point too. But now I think it's a better alternative to Mason Rudolph. You probably can't change my mind on that. And let's just go ahead, and it's going to be exciting. And we know it's going to be fun. And like I said, if it all blows up, at least it's going to be crazy and it's going to be fun. Yeah. I'm just sad it's not on Hard Knocks.
I'm glad it's not on Hard Knocks. It was just too much time to put watching that show. But still, I will say this. I had a good friend of mine who used to work with him. He's the one that kind of got me into podcasting. He's a Dolphins fan. He hit me up on Twitter and said, this is going to be a disaster. And I just responded with, it'll be must-see television either way. And that's what I am looking forward to. I mean, I'll be completely honest here. OTA's phase 3, all the years that I've some way covered the Steelers, even if from afar, I think that goes back to like 2014. This had been the most boring and dull OTAs that I've ever covered. It was nothing. There was no juice. Yes, there was news and we're talking about some stuff, but man, like it seemed like I know I'm not alone here. It seemed like even the fan base was saying 2026, when does that get here? Because that's what everyone's talking about. And it almost feels like, okay, now there's been an injection of life into the Steelers. So there's been an injection into the fan base in some way, shape, or form. Some are furious. They're livid. They're going to Facebook and diving into the comments on every post out there. And then some are just like, you know what? Like me, at least it's done. It's done. Well, until he signs a contract. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get a super chat up here. Steelers Nation Australia, that's our own Marky D, host of G'day Steelers Nation, which can be found on our audio platform as well. You can check him out on Steelers Nation Australia. He gives us $5 dingo dollars. He said, crikey, bloomin' onions. The Steelers sign A-Rod. Let's give him number 12 and really annoy Steeler fans. That would be a lot. Yes, fans would be bad. And let's get Steeler fan 69. He always gives us $5. We appreciate the tip. And it's a joke, and he always holds it. I always try to hold it to the end, but now let's get it out of the way. He said, Bad walks into the beehive and asks a dancer, Are you twerking hard or hardly twerking?
I love it.
Our 2026.
That's a dad joke of a dad joke.
Yeah. Our 2026 draft party will be at the Beehive. Make sure y'all check it out. And, we're going to have it resurrected for just that day. But anyways.
I was going to say just something else about what Brian said.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I wasn't wanting this to happen early on. But then the more that it seemed like it was a possibility of reality, then you try to think about the different positive things. And I do think that Aaron Rodgers gives you a higher ceiling with your offense. Whether they reach that ceiling is what we'll have to tune into games to see. But just Jeff talked about the excitement and how so many people were talking about 2026. This just turned the season from being kind of like the turnpike at Kennywood, where you just get in the car and you can only steer it so much and you press the pedal, but you're still just kind of going along. That's what it was going to be. Now you're a little bit more like the Thunderbolt. Now you're going to have some ups and downs and some arounds and everything else. And to kind of see what's going on. And if nothing else, Steelers fans, I don't know, some fans might be more embarrassed by this. A lot of Steelers fans were embarrassed by so many people saying, what are you doing at quarterback? Blah, blah, blah. Well, That's not a question anymore.
Yeah, I think a good comparison is if they didn't get Aaron Rodgers, we would have been set up for another 2019, where I think the defense is going to be better than it was last year. I think the defense is going to be very, very. Yes, I think it's going to be very, very good and more well-rounded than it has been in the past 2 seasons. And you would have an offense that's kind of like, what do we have here? And now I think with Rodgers, it's very akin to 2020, meaning you have an aging Ben Roethlisberger coming back off of the elbow surgery. There's a lot of trepidation around his return. What's it going to look like? Can he hold up? Can they win some games? Can they do some damage? I think that's very similar where a lot of people think, okay, Aaron Rodgers didn't play well last year. The Jets were a dumpster fire. The year prior, he played 4 snaps before rupturing his Achilles tendon, and he wasn't great in 2022 either. So a lot of people are just like, okay, well, what are we doing? I think that if I'm drawing a comparison, it's if we didn't have Rodgers, it's 2019. And now that we do, theoretically, he hasn't signed a contract yet. Now we're looking at 2020. And 2020 was a pretty magical year until the very end of the season, if I'm being honest. So, Brian, what's your take?
Yeah, absolutely. And think about this. Not only do you have a guy that is in his mind probably doing a last hurrah type of thing. So he's absolutely motivated. The guy's not coming in for money. This is not a money thing. The guy needs no part of money. He is set. I'm sure he set himself up for life, and he doesn't talk to his family, so he doesn't have to give them anything. So with that being sorry, I had to throw that in. But so with all of that, you've just got to think that the Lions, the Bears, the Vikings, and that week 8 in primetime against the Packers, those are some huge games. That's a whole lot bigger than week 1 versus the Jets. All of those games, if you ask me. And he's going to be primed for those as well. I really think, yes, he makes the team better. And somebody mentioned on the live chat, hey, they're going to go ahead and be able to throw in the middle of the field. I think this makes Pat Freiermuth better. I think it makes all of the tight ends better. Of course, it's a good hookup with a guy like DK Metcalf, and you're going to see another receiver coming in. A lot of people are already penciling Allen Lazard. That's fine. I mean, who cares? But Calvin Austin's going to be better. Roman Wilson's going to have a better situation. So I kind of really like this whole thing. I'm excited for it. It's a Hall of Famer playing in Pittsburgh. And I have one more thing that think about not what the fans think, but think of what the players are thinking right now too. And that's a big thing. And really, if you're a player, and we talked about this a little bit last year with Calvin Austin III having a poster and having a jersey of Russell Wilson when he was a kid. A lot of these players have always wanted to play with a Hall of Fame guy. Some of them a lot of them got to play with Ben, but getting to play with this guy, Aaron Rodgers, there's people very excited about it because they know that their stock goes up. Even George Pickens, who's not on the team right now, when he was asked about 2-3 months ago in April, he was asked, who are the 2 players you'd want to play with that would be your dream teammates? He said, Ed Reed, which I guess that would be a practice thing, to go against him in practice, and Aaron Rodgers. And so the guys in the huddle in the locker room, they're a lot more excited than you think, than they're not. So they get a chance to have a whole lot better situation than a guy like Mason Rudolph, who everybody is thinking just get us to 2026. Don't have to worry about getting to 2026. The bridge that Dave talked about on the show the other day, the bridge isn't there. Let's put a division.
That's fair. So I want to bring this up. Brian alluded to it. I want to get Dave's take. And Reginald Rivers, he said this in the live chat. He said, now that Aaron Rodgers, is here, the Steelers are going to go get their wide receiver too. Now, that's his statement and that's his opinion. My question is for Dave and also for Brian is, do you think, making that assumption that we've been making the entire show, that Aaron Rodgers will indeed be coming to Pittsburgh, will be signing a contract, Do you think the Steelers will approach the acquisition of any other players, mainly offensive pass catchers, differently now than, say, a week ago when they weren't sure about Aaron Rodgers' future? If that doesn't make sense, I can clarify further. Dave, do you have?
Based on what the Steelers do, I say no. Based on players willing to come to Pittsburgh, whether it's free agent. I mean, if you're looking at a trade, that could be different. But if you're looking to sign a free agent, then I think it does make a difference. Maybe for all we know, maybe someone like a Keenan Allen or someone was ready to come to Pittsburgh, but wanted to see how the Aaron Rodgers thing shook out or something like that. I just threw Keenan Allen out there because I know Coach KT Smith mentioned him as somebody. That maybe it does, but to me, I think the reports of the Steelers asking about inquiring any kind of playmaker from across the league is exactly what they should be doing whenever you are a team that has salary cap space. And that's why I'm still wanting to see exactly what this comes down to be, to know exactly what the Steelers cap space situation is once this is done. But to me, I think the Steelers were doing it anyway, but it might be a little bit easier now.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, definitely, because you will have a player right now that if he wants to be traded, and he might just say, hey, I would definitely put Pittsburgh back on that list, because now it's a possibly attractive team. I would love it. I haven't seen, and you guys are the betting guys. I don't know what Vegas odds are. I don't know what FanDuel odds or whatever odds are now for the playoffs, but they actually probably rise a little bit because Mason Rudolph's not your quarterback and it's Aaron Rodgers. Now, some people are still saying that we saw in the live chat, it's still a 6-11 team. That's your opinion. That's fine. But so when you look at all of that, if DraftKings looks at this and probably thinks that this is a more exciting team to look at, other players are going to be like, yeah, that would be a good destination. If you're going to trade me to Pittsburgh. That could be a possibility. I mean, you're going to go to Pittsburgh before you go to Jacksonville and the Browns. You're going to go to Pittsburgh before you go to teams like that if you have a chance to go ahead and play with this guy. So I really think that this is such an exciting thing. This makes the team more of a destination now, which they weren't always a destination. This puts them back on the list. And I feel like, why not? The Steelers are going to approach this now as a team that's not just looking for a guy, but the guy, and they're going to try to build their team in the next couple months. I mean, there's not a lot of transactions going, but they're going to act like, all right, we're contenders with this quarterback. Whether you believe it or not, they believe it with this move.
I think that, to go back to my initial question, I think that this does change a lot. What I'm hopeful is that the Steelers don't just go out and get someone for a one-year deal unless they're a free agent and is cheap. So there's been a lot of talk about trades, whether it's Jonnu Smith down in Miami. There's been the Chris Olave talk. Terry McLaurin's name always gets brought up. Kyle Pitts has been mentioned from Atlanta. There's been a lot of talk. I think the Steelers, with so many draft picks coming up in 2026, I don't think they're really interested, assuming they get 12 total, I don't think they're really interested in drafting 12 players. I really don't. So, okay.
Where are you going to put them?
What's that?
You're not going to be able to keep them
right,
all.
Exactly. So you can trade some stuff and you can make some moves. And let's say it is a Chris Olave. And the Saints are willing to take a day 2 pick, and the Steelers I think this is great. We'll get him on a new contract, and you have him for the immediate future and then some. I'm okay with that. And I think now they might be more willing to do that. Like Dave said, I agree with them 100%. The player himself might be more okay with going to Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers there. And then the plan seems to be put in place. But Brian, you brought up odds. Dave, do you happen to remember what the odds were for the Steelers to win the Super Bowl prior to? Because I have
checked
it right
today
now.
Afterwards. What did you get? What did you check today?
Plus 4,000 right now.
That's what I got too. Because I went in because I was honestly wanting to place it before Rodgers, but I didn't see it happening today. I really didn't.
I'm thinking it was
Jeff kind of called this because Jeff was like, he really needs to show up before mandatory minicamp. But I'm like, no, he doesn't. It's always been training camp, blah, blah, blah. To me, coming now and being here for mandatory minicamp is a bonus. This is something I wasn't expecting. So if he's going to get ready, I appreciate that he's showing up for the mandatory minicamp. But the odds, no, I don't think it was.
They haven't changed. I looked it up. I looked up my article I wrote after the schedule release. I did an article updating the odds. Super Bowl 2026 odds, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, at that time, plus 4,000. I just checked out on my phone. They're still plus 4,000.
I was thinking they might not have even put odds out there because of the Rodgers stuff. So, or they think it just doesn't move the needle.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the things that'll shift, in my opinion, are the regular season win if you're doing the over-unders. So, for instance, if you wanted the over 12.5 is plus 950 at the time of when I wrote the article, 10.5 is plus 320. I would imagine that 10.5 wins is not going to be plus 320 anymore. I think that's going to probably dip down a little bit, maybe plus one something, maybe plus 195. Yeah. Yep. I'll look it up. But all right. Well, I looked that up. Let's take a quick break. When we come back out of the break, we'll continue to talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. We still have to do trivia and all that fun stuff. If you're watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. Otherwise, we'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, we're back. It's the second half of the Steelers Preview Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. For those of you that might just be chiming in, or maybe you were asleep in the first half, we are going to continue our draft recap where we preview every player. Next week, we'll go to round 6. Will Howard, quarterback. Anyone else, just going back to the Rodgers thing, does anyone else feel bad for Mason Rudolph? I feel like he had to know. He had to know, right?
I think he had to know. And I also think that it's not like he's not going into the season designed to be the starter, but he's also probably I mean, think about it. You're backing up a guy who's 41. You got to think that you still might have an opportunity to get out there at any moment.
Yeah, you're right.
And, at a backup quarterback, you're the most popular guy in a city, in most cities, being the backup, unless maybe you're Mahomes' backup or something like that. Josh Allen's backup. This
Mitch
is
Trubisky.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. But, it's I feel bad a little bit for him, but being a good quality backup in this league's a good place to be. So, I mean, yeah, probably had to know. He's going to probably say all the right things, but it's not like he spurned other teams to come back to the Steelers. This was, we need you, you need us. And that's really what it was when he signed.
All right. I'll get to Mason in a second, but I looked up the Steelers. These odds have not changed at all. Now, maybe it's because these sports books are saying, let's wait until he actually signs. Maybe that's it. But if you out there,
they felt he was going to sign the whole time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're out there thinking that Aaron Rodgers gives them like 11, 12 win potential, I'm not saying that I'm one of those people, but if you do, the Steelers at over 10.5 wins is plus 320. I think that's a really good bet. If you believe in Aaron Rodgers, that he can stay healthy and that they're going to build around him. I think that's a good bet. If you got 12.5, over 12.5, that's plus 950. Those are really good odds. And over 8.5 is still plus odds at plus 110. So if you're out there and you're like, I've been waiting to make some future bets, I want to get on that before they adjust those things.
So you said 8.5 is plus 110?
Yeah.
So you bet the 8.5 and the 10.5. And if they hit 9, then you're just barely above breaking even.
Right.
And then if they go farther, then you really are hitting it.
That is the definition of hedging your bet, David. Very
yes.
good.
I didn't necessarily wanted to have to go into defining it. I was just saying, hey, drop it on both of them.
I'll say this about Mason Rudolph and I said, I did last week on the Let's Ride podcast. I was so sick of everyone being so flipping negative all the time. I was like, I'm going to do some positive storylines coming out of OTAs. And one of them was Mason Rudolph, because this guy think about his career. He gets drafted in the 3rd round of 2018. The starting quarterback goes on his radio show and essentially says, what a waste of a pick. I can't stand the selection. We could have gotten a player that's actually going to help us. And here's Mason Rudolph saying, what the hell did I do to this guy? I mean, what did I do? It's not my fault I got picked third. It's not my fault Kevin Colbert opened his mouth and said that they had a first-round grade on him. And so he sits all of 2018, 2019. He finally gets a chance, bends out. He almost dies at Heinz Field when he gets popped late and high against the Ravens. That was Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hits him high and late. I thought he was dead. Not going to lie. Other than Matt
I was
Moore,
scared.
Other than Matt Moore, when he got hit by Bud Dupree, Dave was at that game. I thought he was dead too. And so Mason
he
finally
came right back in the game.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He finally comes
Mason
back. Mason did not. Mason didn't know where he was. He's on the sideline saying, I'm Batman. Mason did not come back in the game. He goes through the concussion protocol. And while he's in the concussion protocol, Devlin Hodges comes here. Duck Hodges, this guy, starts winning football games. He loses his job, comes back in, gets called a racist. His helmet gets used as a weapon against him on Thursday Night Football in Cleveland. The Steelers don't want him anymore. Then they want him, and he goes. This guy's career has been just one nightmare after the next. I do feel for Mason Rudolph, but again, he didn't sign a lucrative contract. Dave, wasn't it 2 years, $8 million, something like that?
That is a very good question that I could tell you the exact number here in just a moment. Because
Brian, you know?
No, but Jeff, you forgot one more thing.
What did I forget?
Against the Jets, they
shoulder.
They finally decide, like,
it was like his sternum, right?
Didn't
it was
BJ was it BJ
clavicular? Yeah.
Something.
I think whoever was playing center, and I think it was BJ Finney at that time, because somebody got hurt. I think Pouncey got hurt and got pushed back and stepped on him. Or it was that kid from Alabama who they had at center.
Didn't he fumble a snap and he was reaching for it, so his arm was extended and then he got stepped on or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that, but
he
finally got his job back against the Jets, and then he gets hurt again.
Yeah. Rest in peace, BJ Finney pants, by the way.
Yeah.
It still has a problem.
And in case you're wondering, it's 7.5 for 2 years.
Oh, well, that's even better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
cap numbers under $3 million this year. Well, it's funny. I estimated it to be $3 million. Over the cap has it as just under $3 million, and I think Spot Rack has it as exactly $3 million. Obviously, one of them's not right, but it's around there.
So Mason Rudolph's been through the ringer, and I didn't even mention how in 2023 he gets the Steelers into the playoffs. And then that offseason, they're like, yeah, we're not really interested in bringing you back, so you can go somewhere else. And he goes to Tennessee, and they're awful. And then he comes back, and maybe I have a shot at being a quarterback and being the guy. And nope, Aaron Rodgers is coming in, and here we go again. I do feel for Mason Rudolph, if I'm being completely honest.
But he could do this for another 15 years, though.
Absolutely.
And make a whole lot of money in this league.
For sure.
And have a long, happy life.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. All right. I guess let's do some final thoughts on the Rodgers stuff before we move on. Dave, anything else you want to add about Aaron Rodgers?
Okay. Anything else you want to add about Aaron Rodgers? Okay. More than anything, I just want it to be about playing football. I don't want to have to deal with and hear about, and whether he or the fans or anything, with the more than football stuff. To me, it's just about if the focus is on the football, then just let him do what he does on the field. And if what he does on the field isn't good enough, then oh well, then that's just what it is. The Steelers aren't going to have the best season. Maybe they move to Mason Rudolph. Maybe they just don't win a bunch of games and then on to 2026. Or it is about, or it does work out well and the Steelers win more games and everything else. But I as long as it's just about the football, that's what I want more than anything, rather than any of the other outside noise. That's the biggest thing with me.
That's fair. Brian, final thoughts on A-Rod?
Yeah, you know what? I am loving it. One, from a content creator perspective, but just because this makes this season so much more exciting for the Steelers. I will say this, though. Get ready, folks. Grab your popcorn. The circus is coming to town. But we just hope it's Barnum and Bailey and not just a bunch of meth heads and sex traffickers coming to your town on the weekend.
Oh, my gosh. Oh my gosh! Meth
so
heads.
We've reached the meth heads and sex traffickers portion of the show.
Welcome back, Brian Davis. I got to be honest, the last 2 weeks we did not have a lot of methamphetamine jokes and sex trafficking jokes. So it's good to have you back, Brian, for sure.
Is it? No, sorry.
Throughout all the nonsense and all this stuff that's happened very, very recently, the Steelers did just wrap up week 2 of OTAs. And let's talk about phase 3, which was shortened by a week. I know Dave has mentioned that on several podcasts. They did have their team event last past Monday at Kennywood, and so players were out riding roller coasters and stuff. What was your guys' takeaway from phase 3 of OTAs, if anything at all? You might have said it was a big nothing burger. Dave, what do you say?
Well, this kind of wrapped a bow on the nothing burger. There was plenty of stuff to see. But then when this news comes out, so now you're expecting Aaron Rodgers next Tuesday. You're expecting DK Metcalf next Tuesday. You're expecting TJ Watt to be in the building. Whether or not he does anything is different. My goodness, you're even expecting Chris Boswell. I love Cam Hayward's answer today. If you saw that, like, do you expect anyone else to be here next week? He's like, yeah, I think Boswell will be here. Stay away from TJ, stay away from Rodgers, all the good stuff. So you're at least going to see that. So to me, it amps up next week a little bit more because it's more complete, but it kind of makes it be like, all right, well, they did what they needed to do for 2 weeks, which was really get rookies and new players, newer to the NFL players up to speed. But I still think the biggest thing to take away from these past 2 weeks are the players coming back from injury. Like, we even got to see, first I had seen a video of Cam Johnston punting today. Yeah. Which was a good one to see. We've seen Cole Holcomb. We've seen Troy Fautanu. We've seen Roman Wilson. Haven't seen much, heard a little bit from, but you don't know how much of it'll be. DeMarvin Leal coming back from the neck injury and things like that. So to me, one of the bigger things is you wanted to get through those 2 weeks, as healthy as possible. Unfortunately, the Seals did officially lose Donald Parham to IR. They officially made that move today, right before the Rodgers news broke too, right? Was it like 30 seconds before that came out? If you look,
is that the roster spot they needed?
No, because they actually already had one.
Okay.
From what I do believe. So, maybe there was one in case it was Gabe Davis, but that's, like I say, that's all about injury and whatnot. So to me, it makes those last 2 weeks good in the moment, but when you look back on it, well, I guess it wasn't nearly as important of what's coming next week.
All right, Brian, what about you for OTAs? What do you think?
The only thing I care about at OTAs is, there's two things. One is no news is good news, which means nobody getting hurt at OTAs. That's the number one thing for OTAs. The second thing that I think, this is the most important thing, OTAs. It's establishing culture, establishing camaraderie. That Kennywood trip, that is amazing stuff. I think that is paramount. I love that they do it, whether it was Dave and Buster's, whatever they did. That kind of stuff, that helps set up the culture. And that also sets up the new guys coming in. It's culture. And this is, for me, orientation. Jeff, you were a teacher.
Yes.
And so you would probably see, I think you were high school or middle school?
I was middle school for 16 years.
Okay, so you would see the
high school, but taught middle school.
Yes. Okay, you would see the sixth graders coming in, all wide-eyed for orientation, looking around, and then there were the eighth graders that were supposed to go ahead, and there was some, I forget what they call them here where we live, but they have special T-shirts for the orientations, and they're always there's some kind of leaders that always lead them around, and they're their go-to. They're their liaison for middle school to help them out if they have any problem. And that's kind of what this is. It's an orientation. So I love that they get an opportunity to go ahead and do this, just learn what the culture is, being in Pittsburgh. And by the time you get to training camp, they're ready to go. I also like to see some of the bodies. And this is not a perverted thing. This isn't 2 a.m. bad. I love seeing Darnell Washington coming in 15, 20. I mean, have you seen Darnell Washington? The man looks good. He comes in looking good. I saw a guy for another team coming in, looks like he put on 30 pounds of muscle. I mean, he looks like a house and a Hulk, but there's no fat on. So, you see these guys come in and they say the same things at the beginning. I've lost 10 to 15 pounds. I'm focused. I'm ready to go. We'll see. This is the beginning of it, but we'll see if this carries on into training camp. But I think the culture, we see everything we don't like about Mike Tomlin and his team of coaches. But this is a chance for the coaches and the team to go ahead and establish good relationships with young players. I love when I see at rookie minicamp, and who was it? Dunbar used to do it a lot. You'd see Dunbar on one knee and one-on-one with a guy, giving him the orientation. He wasn't giving him the business, not giving him hell. He was just teaching and coaching. And it's such a nice thing to see. I'm sure it goes around all over the league, but I think they're learning how special the Steel City and this organization is when they come in OTAs, and then everything puts into fifth gear when they come back at the end of July.
Yeah. And I think that's all fair. And I like what both you all said there. I want to bring this question up if I can find it again. It's AWOL. Here you go. He's asked this question like 10 times. Who is wide receiver number 2? That's what everyone kind of wants to know now is who is wide. So Gabe Davis did visit Pittsburgh reportedly today, Thursday, and everyone said that he left without a contract. I don't necessarily believe it was a situation where if he leaves without a contract, he's going to sign elsewhere. This might be a situation where he's visiting teams, seeing what's available, what's a good fit, and then he's going to make his decision. Also, Brian can allude to this from our Jacksonville Jaguars podcaster here through Fans First Sports Network, that Gabe Davis's knee injury, which cost him 6 games last year, I think 6 or 7, is more serious than people think. And he might not be available at the beginning of the season. Brian, I'll let you touch on that.
It cost him his job because he wasn't going to be ready. The hope was, everybody was hoping that he would be ready for training camp, but really they weren't expecting anything until probably the middle of October. And that's and I don't think that benefits the Steelers. I think the biggest thing to look at here is you're kicking the tires on a guy. You're seeing, is he healthy? And you're putting him through the workout. But the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers already had him in, and he left without a contract there. So I would be shocked if they brought him in. Now, he's a physical specimen. He's tall. He's quick. He can catch a long ball. I would love to have Gabe Davis if he was healthy. It also gives me another jersey to put with my real name on it. I mean, erase the whole Sean Davis debacle. But I think it'd be great, but I hope they do not bring him in because he's not ready to go yet. Now, if it's October and they bring him in, I'm fine with it. But you need somebody now.
Okay. Dave, any thought on the wide receiver 2 talk?
Well, with Gabe Davis, the one thing is he's owed a whole lot of money from Jacksonville. So it's another Russell Wilson situation like last year. He's just going to no one's going to pay him more than what Jacksonville is going to be paying him anyway. So you've just got to take the minimum. So it's not really about years or not years, money. I mean, it could be maybe about years, but I don't know. But really, it wouldn't make any sense to sign him for more than a year with all that stuff going on anyway. So to me, it's more about health and availability. I mean, if the Steelers, maybe he might be better than what they got. But if he's not even going to be ready to start practicing until mid-October, yes, he has NFL years of experience, so it should hopefully be better to get on that moving train. But my goodness, you couldn't look for him until November. Honestly, is that really what the Steelers need? And if that's the case, then do you need to even sign him now?
And let's also not remember Mike Williams last year, who played all season. He suffered the ACL the year prior, and he couldn't get on that moving train, and he was healthy. Yeah. So interesting stuff. All right, we've talked about a lot. It's been a good show. I want to do some trivia. Dave, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I had looked up and got a trivia already, and then I remembered that we were talking about Will Howard, so then I got a different trivia ready, and then I found out we weren't talking about Will Howard, so I had to go back to my original trivia. Okay, and this is actually not so bad because my trivia is about old people, old players, so it kind of fits with it, and that is because remember Aaron Rodgers is not officially signed yet, but who is maybe I should say it this way. Who's the longest tenured player on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Currently, right now?
Yes.
That's Cam Hayward.
That is Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward was selected 31st overall in the 2011 draft. How many players? This is almost more of a fun fact. We'll get into more of it, but give you guys just a shot in the dark because you're going to pick a number. How many players from the 2011 draft do you think appeared in a game last season in 2024?
Didn't Cam Jordan of the Saints, wasn't he in that draft?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're going to say, Brian?
Yes. I was definitely going to say him. I think Cam Newton was number one that year. I know Julio Jones went on that draft. Those guys didn't appear. I know the tall giant receiver that used to kill us from I never remember this guy's name. He used to kill us from the Cincinnati, number 18. What was his name? He was in that draft, so he didn't play last year. What was his name though?
Number 18?
18?
The guy that used to kill us for Cincinnati, he was really tall.
Thinking about Tyler Eifert, are you?
No.
I don't know who you're talking about.
18 for
Not
Cincinnati. I
Chris-
don't think I can think of Zada 81.
You're not thinking of Henry, are you?
No.
Not Henry. May he rest in peace. He was in that draft. You guys know
I'm
who
looking
I'm
it up.
He's not on this list. Okay. So I can
AJ Green?
AJ Green.
There you go. Oh,
He was in that
Uh,
draft.
Hollywood 931 got it. I'm not.
I
taking
always
credit.
forget that guy's name. I always remember Julio Jones. I never remember AJ Green.
Yeah, but no AJ Green.
But now I don't. Cam Jordan's the guy I remember, unless is Blaine Gabbert still around as a backup? Or I think
he did not appear in a game last year. I'll tell you that.
Okay, yeah,
I don't think he was signed anywhere either.
because I'm just thinking of those first. Randall Cobb appeared in a game last year. I'm pretty sure.
Was he in the 2011 draft? Because he's not on the list.
Yeah, he was a number 2 pick of the a second round pick of the Packers in 2011.
I'll look this up because he is not on my list. No, he did not appear in a game last year.
Oh, okay. I guess that's why I thought he played. No, I can't think of anybody. Jordan's the one that pops out at me.
So, I mean, I was just asking for a number.
Oh, maybe an offensive lineman too. Let's say 3.
Jeff?
Sure. I'm trying to look up the draft right now.
Okay. The answer is 7.
7.
Yes. You missed the number 2 pick in the draft. That was Von Miller.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Number 9 overall, Tyron Smith.
Wow, I didn't realize he was that long ago. I thought he was a couple years later. I thought he was like 2012.
So Cam Jordan, Cam Hayward, then a couple quarterbacks. Second round pick, Andy Dalton.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at it now. Andy Dalton.
6th round pick, Tyrod Taylor. And there was one more 7th rounder, defensive tackle, Lawrence Guy. Those are the 7 players in that draft. And I think this is the true trivia I was going to ask you guys. I think you got this one easy. I think there were only 2 players out of those 7 who has played their entire career with the same team.
Well, that's
not
Cam
Tyron. It was Jordan
and Hayward,
and not Vaughn.
You're right.
And Cam, yeah.
Yeah, it's the 2 Cams. It's Cam Hayward and Cam Jordan both playing defensive line for the same team for all those years. So I thought that was interesting. Now, how many players do you think? Now, remember, they had to have been drafted. How many players do you think drafted prior to 2011 were still appeared in the game last year?
I'm going to go ahead and say if
Sure.
seven, I would probably.
This is all in all, like multiple years.
I would probably say let's cut that down to about 4.
Man, I'll say 3.
Oh, it's way more. It's 13.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it goes from 2010 all the way back to what's the farthest draft away where a player was drafted and they appeared in a game last year? I'll give you a hint. This was a very appropriate question.
Well, it's not Cousins. It's not Cousins because he was 2012.
Well, when was Aaron Rodgers?
I was going to say this is a very appropriate question.
Yeah.
For tonight's topic.
He was
the answer is
05.
Aaron Rodgers in 2005. That is the furthest that you go back in drafts of everyone that appeared. The question is, he's the only one from 2005, and there's one from 2006, and it was a first-round draft pick. Any idea who the one player that drafted in 2006 appeared in all 17 games last season?
Who's the defensive lineman? Is that played in Jacksonville for a long time? Just
I know
went back
you're
to
talking
Arizona.
about
Calais Campbell.
But
that
Calais, he's on this list because he was 2008.
Oh, okay. Mercedes Lewis.
It's Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah.
Mercedes Lewis is still. First
Yeah,
of all,
he played in Chicago last year.
I didn't know he was still
Yep.
around.
Do you know how I know that? Because on
Someone
the
mentioned Mercedes Lewis online with stuff with Aaron Rodgers today. I remember hearing that.
The NFL whip around. Coach
Uh-huh.
Kevin Smith brought him up as a player profile one week because he's been in the league so long. He was like 40-some years old, and he said, it's incredible he's still playing. I was like, wow, I didn't know he's in the league. So that's the only reason I knew he's still in the league.
Well,
so you go
impressive.
2005 Aaron Rodgers, 2000 quarterback, 2006 Mercedes Lewis tight end. That's the impressive one. 2007 there was one player. That was kicker Nick Folk.
Okay.
And 2008 there were 3. Calais Campbell being one, you already mentioned that one, and the other 2 were both quarterbacks.
And you said 2008?
Yes, drafted in 2008. One in the first round, one in the 5th round. Really?
Wait. Okay. 2008, one in the first and one in the 5th. Well, and we're not talking about Calais Campbell then, right?
No, we already got Calais Campbell.
Okay.
In case you're wondering, Matt Stafford was 2009.
Yeah, he was first overall in 09.
Mm-hmm.
That's the year we took Mendenhall in the first round.
Come on. Who's the other old guy that some Steelers fans thought they might sign, if not Rodgers, until he went somewhere else?
Oh, Flacco.
Joe Flacco.
Flacco 5 Flacco.
Joe Flacco. Yeah, and honestly, the other player was one I didn't even know played in a game last year. They said he appeared in 6 games. Must have been for Neil Downs or something because he played for Baltimore.
For the Ravens?
Yeah. Who was their backup last year?
Oh, Josh Freeman.
No, you're
No,
close. Josh Johnson.
Josh Johnson, yeah.
Who's played for like 17 teams, right?
Yeah, seriously. Not the Steelers.
Is Josh Freeman still alive?
I think he's still alive.
Okay.
But
I remember there was a tragedy with like some quarterbacks in that. Ryan Mallett passed away, right?
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
He was a drowning accident.
Yeah, that was horrible. By the way, you mentioned that other guy. I knew I had it in my desk drawer here. Mercedes Lewis's rookie card.
Wow, that's impressive. There you go. Yep.
Nice. Josh Freeman is still alive. He's 37.
Okay.
He hasn't been out of the league long, though. I don't think. Or maybe I just mix him up with Josh Johnson all the time.
So, and if you guys just want to know the rest of the list, the players that were drafted before in a year before Cam Hayward's still playing, I'd gone up to Stafford in 2009. Also, punter Thomas Morstead was drafted in 2009. He punted last year for the Jets. In 2010, there are five players who are still playing, and they are safety Kareem Jackson, defensive end Jerry Hughes, our offensive tackle Trent Williams, defensive lineman Brandon Graham, and defensive lineman Linval Joseph. So it's something about that D line that those guys sticking around.
Well, I will tell you this: Trent Williams will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That guy got better.
Yeah,
that guy got better when he was traded to San Francisco on draft day for basically nothing from Washington back in 2020. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's still valid, and he's still valid.
Yeah. I'm done, Jeff.
Okay. Very good. Let's do some final thoughts. Brian, you're up.
All right. So all of my blockbuster final thoughts, I just said, screw it. And I wasted it during the show. And because I just decided, you asked a question, I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw out all my good stuff here. But the bottom line to the whole thing, yeah, I was keeping the meth head comment into a final thoughts, but now I have no choice. So I'm wearing Crocs right now, and my kids got me off of Temu the NFL helmets. And I reached down and one fell off. One fell off at the very beginning of the show. And of all things, it was the New York Jets. And so I'm thinking about that, the whole thing. The Jets fell off, and Aaron Rodgers is reportedly going to land in Pittsburgh right now. You might not like the man's politics. You might think he's creepy. You might think whatever about him. You might think he's a show-off. You might think he's egotistical. But again, I'm going to go back to something I said early on in the show. The players seem to be elated to play with him. I don't want anybody to bring up those comments from Deshaun Elliott from 2-3 months ago about get your butt back in retirement or whatever, because they're buddies. That was just joking around. Yeah, you could think he's overrated and over the hill, but this really gives the Pittsburgh Steelers a chance to be relevant this year. And if it works, and we've seen it work with Brady, and I know he's different than Tom Brady, I'm just saying that you have a guy that does not get dinged up easy. If he gets dinged up, it's because of like that major injury against the Bills on Monday Night Football when he started the season with the Jets. I just think that if you're not excited for what possibly could be happening, then stay tuned, and we'll allow you on the bandwagon in October when things are really exciting and we're singing songs about the man.
Fair. Dave, final thoughts?
Yeah, you might be excited about this. You might not like it at all. But the bottom line is, it is what it is. Some Steelers fans, I thought more Steelers fans would be accepting of it when it happened, because it was, oh my goodness, it drug on for forever. I don't know if people really thought that it wasn't going to happen or not. But it's kind of just one of those things of, hey, wasn't a big fan of how George Pickens acted either. But as long as he was at the Steelers, I was going to cheer for him. And as soon as he wasn't, I wasn't. That's just kind of how it goes. But if you look back at last season, my goodness, the Jets finished 5-12 while the Steelers finished, shockingly 10-7. But Aaron Rodgers had a better. I mean, if you look at some of the metrics, like the approximate value that they do at Pro Football Reference, Rodgers was twice as good as Justin Fields and significantly better than Russell Wilson. He had more touchdowns than them combined. He had more passing yards than them combined, but he also had more interceptions than them combined as well. So there are various things you can look at. But what I think is, just to remember, if the Pittsburgh Steelers would have played the New York Jets last season in week 1, we would have seen Justin Fields versus Aaron Rodgers.
That's true. Very true. Very true. Well, it's been a good show. Brian, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. It's good to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com, our website, and Steel Curtain Network, the platform. In case you missed it, had a very special Steel City Insider podcast that ran a little bit later this afternoon, evening on our podcast platform. You get to hear from Mark Cabali, Nick Farabaugh of Penn Live, and you also get to hear from Jim and Jeremy, the typical Steel City Insider crew. So check that out. And then you obviously can check out Let's Ride Tomorrow and a whole slate of podcasts. We're going to have you covered every which way and sideways. So thank you all. Aaron Rodgers, let's make it official and let's move on. We'll see where it goes. Until then, Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week. Another Steelers.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.